And Kitco News is rolling out its 2015 Outlook series. We're going to get you started with mining and Brent Cook. So without further ado, here he is. Brent, thanks for joining us today.
Glad to be here again, Alex.
All right, Brent, let's hop to it with the gold mining sector. Now, we know that 2014 was a bit of a rough year for the gold industry, but 2015 is coming. What kind of themes and what kind of outlook do you have for 2015?
I honestly think we're going to have another rough year. I think we continue with the gold price bouncing more or less along this bottom here until the major miners and intermediate miners start actually making money. It's difficult to see how we're going to get a lot of new investors into this sector. So I think next year is going to be tough, but I also honestly believe that it's probably the best year we're going to see in quite a few to start leveraging into some of these some of the better companies.
Now, you mentioned seniors and mid-tier producers. We'll throw juniors in there too. I mean, we all know 2014 was a tough year for companies to raise any kind of capital. But having said that, looking into 2015, looking at these three-tier groups, the seniors, the mid-tiers, and the junior miners, do you see one outperforming another?
Well, I suspect that as the very few producers that can show they're making money and bringing on new projects that are profitable, I think that's where the initial big money is going to go into. So really, I think we'll see a gradual investment into those very few companies, and it'll take a while to trickle down to the smaller cap companies that I really focus on, and the exploration companies, which ultimately I think is definitely the place to be, because my thesis going, looking out 1, 2, 3 years is that we are flat out not finding enough legitimately economic deposits to replace production across the board in all metals almost. So that's really the place I want to focus. But coming out of this, it will probably be the companies like B2 Gold, Agnico, Goldcorp, and even the new Osisko royalties that we'll see start rising ahead of the crowd.
Now, looking at exploration and development companies, analysts haven't really been giving them that much positive news in 2014. Now, looking at 2015, do you see any hope there, some opportunity for these guys?
I think what I'm going to focus on are well-run companies with competent management and enough cash in the bank to do something meaningful. There's going to be a lot of small financings come out just to keep various these small companies surviving. That's not something I'm going to be investing in for the most part, because really there's enough projects out there in good companies that I think that's the place to focus. And this is, these are dirt cheap now. So I think those sorts of companies are where to be.
Right, gold mining stocks. Now, over the last couple of years, we've had analysts come out and say, this is a bottom for gold mining stocks. Gold mining stocks in specific companies or GDX or whatever it is are not going to go any lower, and they have consistently done that. Now, again, this is coming up. Miners are cheap right now. Can they get cheaper?
Oh, most certainly. I mean, a lot of these companies are flat out just barely breaking even. And the way they've got there, reducing their costs, has been by high grading, cutting development, cutting exploration, cutting maintenance. All those things are short-term positive in terms of free cash flow, but long-term, it's the death knell. So I think we're going to see some of these companies get in a lot worse shape going forward without a real rise in the gold price. And I'm not going to predict, what the gold price is going to do, but I don't see any reason offhand that it's going to appreciate considerably over the next year or so.
All right, Brent, real quick, we're going to talk about production in 2015. Some are saying that we've already reached peak supply in 2014, or we're going to possibly see it in 2015. Now, other analysts are calling for growing middle class in India and China to have gold demand really spill into the gold market in 5-10 years, see gold prices just jump a whole lot more. Are you buying into any of this?
Yeah, they've been saying that for years, right? No one ever goes back and look and see what the prediction was the year before or the previous year. Supply and demand numbers for gold are different than for copper, iron, that sort of thing, because really all the gold that's been mined almost is still available somewhere. So what we're really looking at, and what I'm really looking at, I should say, is that the mining companies do continue to produce. We're producing on the average, I think, 89 million ounces a year. That's not being replaced with new discoveries. So regardless of what happens in China, India, that sort of thing, I think the mining companies are going to be looking next year at having to go out and buy the very few legitimately economic deposits that are out there.
Now, looking at projects or companies that do pique your interest, you mentioned earlier a strong management team. Obviously, the quality of the project is paramount. What else do you really look into?
It all comes down to, as quickly as possible, assess what their overall potential is, tons and grade, what the geologic setting is that feasible to make that discovery that the company seems to think is there? And then what's it really going to cost to build it? What's the infrastructure look like? Where are they at? What's it going to cost to get the ore out of the rock? What's the metallurgy? What are the mining costs going to be? Is this open pit, underground? What's the strip ratio? You really got to do that from the very first drill hole. Even before that, I'm looking at projects now where they're just trench samples across zones and making some conclusion as to what's it going to take to make this work. You've got to do that as quickly as possible because we know 90% of these are going to fail. So if we know that, our job is to identify the fatal flaw as quickly as possible and move on.
All right, Brent, so to wrap it up and summarize, it's going to be a bit of a rough and tumble year in 2015 with some hope?
I think so. I think 2015 is the year to start leveraging into the type of projects and companies we've discussed. I think, 2016, 17, we'll be pretty happy.
Excellent, Brent. Thanks again for joining me. Enjoy the holidays.
Well, thank you. And the same to you and all your listeners, too. I appreciate what Kitco does out there.
And thank you for joining us for this Mining Outlook 2015 series. If you have any comments or questions, always welcome at newsfeedback@kitco.com. And of course, stay tuned for our ongoing Outlook coverage. Cheers.